All three of them work. That was just freezing that much.
Oh, no, she's not. Oh, no, she's not.
Hey, quit running, honey. Thank you.
Yeah, whatever. It's not Thursday. Whatever. Hurry up. Chop, chop.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good to see you.
Good to see you tonight. We are packed tonight.
Amen.
All right, everyone. Please stand up. And church to back. If you have your hymn book, if you want to use the hymn book, our first song is Love Lifted in page 546.
Thank you.
and turn your handbook if you still have it to page 54. Great is life.
You can't take a shower for a couple of days. People have to
It's thy faithfulness, O God, my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not their compassions, they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever wilt be. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Summer and winter, springtime and autumn, sun, moon, and stars in their courses above. Drawn with all nature and manifold witness to thy great faithfulness, mercy, and love. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Pardon for sin, peace that endureth. Thine own dear presence to cheer and to guide. Strength for today and my hope for tomorrow. Blessings so bright with 10,000 ways to great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thine hands have provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord,
Oh, how great is the faithfulness is. Good to see y'all tonight. I hope you have your Bibles with you and be turning to the book of Mark, chapter 3. Book of Mark, chapter 3. If you'll be finding that, we'll get going here in just a second. I trust you've had a good week. I trust you've been able to stay dry. I've enjoyed listening to the rain. It's been nice. It's nice over there. I always love the metal roof and everything. And now that we've got the walkway going from here over to the gym, it's even better when you're in the house, because you know where our bedroom is over there. And when that downpour comes, just sleep like a baby, you know, in there. So it's really been nice. But it is good to see you. I hope you're you know, looking forward to this coming Sunday. We're going to have a every week special. We're going to have a special service this coming Sunday. I'm not going to tell you a lot about it, but just encourage you to be here and make sure you tell tell others. But we're really gonna have a good time when we gather together Sunday and make it special. But if you will, take your Bibles and turn here into Mark chapter 3. Let's just get right into it. Verse 1, and this is going to be an answer. At this point in the ministry of Jesus, it's just like Paul. When I asked you where did he start, it was always the same place, and now Jesus is doing the same thing. Where do you find Jesus? Here in Mark chapter 3, verse 1. In the synagogue. Like again, don't let people tell you don't need to come to church. Jesus did. He set the example. That the Apostle Paul, he did the same thing. But here he is in church. But he wasn't the only one in church that day. Who else was in church? Yeah, now I want you to think about this guy. Don't just read by there. Okay, here's Jesus. He's in church that morning. And there's a man there with a withered hand and everything. But don't just keep going when you read that. You see, because just knowing everything that's going to be happening. And keep in mind, we're just getting started. Here in the book of Mark, and already Jesus is having these run-ins with the scribes and Pharisees because he's breaking their rules, breaking their religious laws and things. But think about this crippled man. Do you think that this guy, three options, see if you can make which one it is. Do you think that, okay, there's a man with a withered hand, he just happened to be there that week. I mean, every week he comes to church and he's always there. That's one option. That he was just there like he always was. Or do you think maybe he heard about Jesus and he heard that he was healing people, making them better, and he said, I'm going to come to church this week. So maybe Jesus will see me and heal me. Or then there's number 3 here. Do you think that maybe the scribes and Pharisees, these religious leaders, know him, every time Jesus sees somebody that's sick and injured, he heals them. Let's go get this man with a withered hand. Let's get him in the church. Then we can catch Jesus breaking the law by healing him. Which one do you think it is? The last one? Yeah. Well, y'all don't think much of religious leaders. Almost every one of you jumped on that. I can't help. I would like to think it was the first one, that he was there because he's always in church. May have been. We don't know. But I was kind of thinking the same thing, and everything that's here. But here's the thing. They complimented Jesus here. They didn't mean to. If the third one is the answer, they just played a really big compliment to Jesus because they acknowledge the compassion that he has for other people. Look at it, verse 2. What were the religious leaders doing there in verse 2? Okay, Jesus is there in the synagogue. The man with the withered hand there. The leaders are there. What were they doing in verse 2? They were worshiping. Is that what it said? No. They came to church. They wanted to see whether or not he's going to heal this man on the Sabbath day. Now, they're not going to have to wait long, but before Jesus gets into action, because they are, they're trying to trap him. But is that not the wrong reason to be in church? I mean, did they get up that morning and they put on their Sunday go to meeting clothes? Because that's what they would have. They had the special robes and all this that they had to wear because they're the religious leaders, the priests and things. And so they put all their special clothes on and did everything. And then they came into church because they want to trap Jesus. It wasn't the worship. Man, I hope we don't have people who get up, get dressed, get cleaned up, drive over here and everything simply because they're wanting to trap somebody and everything that's here. But that's what they're wanting to do. They're trying to heal him. Look down in verse 3. What does Jesus say to the man here with the withered hand? He stand up. Jesus is not going to do this in hiding. He's not going to do it, but behind everybody's back. He could have said to the man, listen, I see you. Well, your hand's messed up, buddy. I see that. I feel for you. I'm going to take care of it. I tell you what, come by tomorrow. Could he have done that? Yeah, he could have. And how long has this man's hand been withered? We don't know. But apparently one day, I could hang in one more day if I knew it was going to be healed. But that's not what he did. Why do you think Jesus didn't tell him, let's make an appointment or come back tomorrow when he knew he knows what these guys are doing? Why didn't Jesus ask him to come back? Well, yeah, not who he was. He had a purpose to be there. All of you are right. Both of you there. It's not who he is. He's got a purpose to be there. He's not going to do this. He is going to challenge their legalistic traditions. People came first for Jesus. Verse 4 there. Jesus looks at the scribes and Pharisees, and I love this. This is the habit of Jesus. He does this all the time. He teaches me, he asks questions, and he asked one of the most brilliant questions that he could throw at these religious leaders there. Look at verse 4. Don't you like this? Is it lawful? In verse 4, I really like this. Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do evil? To save a life or to kill? That's pretty good, isn't it? I mean, that's really, he's throwing up because he knows what they're thinking. I can only imagine the man that's there. He told the man to stand forth, and so the man, he stands forth, and so he knows that something's getting ready to happen. When the man heard these words, when he spoke these words to religious leaders, is it lawful to do good or to do bad? You say, what do you think this man knows getting ready to happen? He knows it's coming. Man, he's going to take care of it. He's going to take care of it right here. You see, they had nothing to say. Jesus asked a question. Did they answer it? Were you ever in the school and the teacher asked you a question and you didn't answer it? Yeah. You know why I didn't answer it? I didn't have an answer. I had a professor at seminary. I want you to know, I always studied before I went to this man's class. We would be in class and we would sit down at our desk. He didn't go straight down the list alphabetically like you were in the book, He would just start doing it randomly. And I might sit down and he might say, soon to be preacher Jim Osteen, or something like that. He'd say, stand up. So you stand by your desk, and then you stand there. He starts lecturing. He might lecture a second. He might go on several minutes, but you just stand and you wait. And then all of a sudden, in this lecture, he says, well, wait a minute. Brother Jim, how about picking it up right here? And you tell the rest of the story, And if you knew it, he would let you sit down. But if you couldn't, if you just stood there, you know what happened? You spent the whole class standing up there. I mean, everybody studied for that class. They didn't answer him because they didn't have an answer for him. I mean, they had no answer, and they stepped there, but Jesus knew their hearts. He knew why they were there in church that day. He knew they were there for the wrong reason and everything. There's a church in this county, not here in Richland. It's not this one. It's not Richland when I was there, but it is in our county. This is while Llewellyn and I were still doing revivals and things. But there is a church in this county that they had a special meeting, and there were people who showed up on Sunday morning, and they hadn't been there at least 4 years, because that's how long the preacher of that church had been there. You know why they came? Somebody got on the phone and said, we're voting on whether or not to keep our preacher. You better be here Sunday. They hadn't been there 4 years, didn't know the man. And why did they come to church? To vote. And that's the only reason they were there. These men, they weren't there for the proper reason. Jesus basically said to them, when he asked this question, he simply said, here's somebody that's in trouble. Here's somebody that's got this physical need. If I fail to help him, am I doing good or am I doing evil? Which one is it? Is it lawful? on the Sabbath to do good or evil. You know, and it says that there in verse 4, they kept silent. Notice in verse 5, the wording here. He looked around at them with anger. It helps a little bit to know the language used here. He didn't just look in their direction. You know, like I'll scan the room sometimes, you know. But I mean, he looked at it individually, eyeball to eyeball here. And it says that he looked with anger. Do you see that? I want you to think about that. He never expressed anger. Jesus never expressed anger. If you find in scriptures, let me know. He never expressed anger towards the publicans and sinners, did it? To the one caught in adultery. He didn't express anger to the ones who were actually nailing him to the cross. Remember what he said to them? Father, forgive them. They don't know what it is. But here, it says he became angry with the self-righteous scribes and Pharisees. You see, they had rather protect their own traditions than they had to help this man. And so his heart is really, really broken here. And is grieved at their lack of compassion and mercy. The word anger is kind of interesting here. The word used in anger is in the aorist tense, which means it is a sense of momentary anger. But when he looked at them and he knew what they were thinking, this anger came on him. But it also says that he grieved. It was a sense of continuing grief. He had this continuing grief for all of these religious leaders, you know. Gosh, I hope he doesn't get angry, grief with my attitude. But now he turns his attention, still in verse 5, he turns his attention back to this man. Now at this point, what do you think the man's thinking? Is he smiling? Yeah. It's getting ready to happen. He tells the man, and Jesus, there's something neat here. I don't know how many times before I ever caught this. Something really neat here. He told the man, he said, stretch forth your hand. Now, when was the man's hand actually healed?
Right then.
Yeah, when he stretched it forward. It was right there when he stretched it forward. His hand was healed when he did that which Christ told him to do. He stretching forth his hand. I believe it was an act of faith, and I believe he was expecting him, to be healed. I love verse 6. I love what it says in verse 6. It says, the Pharisees, upon seeing the man's healed hand, immediately threw up theirs and started singing the doxology, praise God from whom all blessings flow. They didn't do that. I hope you would have been jumping them down with joy and everything, and don't get jealous if somebody else gets healed and you don't. Rejoice with them. But anything, what did they do?
Father to destroy.
And how quick? How quick?
Immediately.
There's that word again. He loves that word again. He's actually getting out there. But here's the thing. I don't know if that had anything to do with them getting out of service. But Jesus, this time, he actually did not break their Sabbath laws. I'll tell you why. He didn't. He simply told the man to stretch forth his hand. There's nothing wrong with saying, stretch forth your hand. Nothing wrong with telling him to do that. No law was broken concerning work. There's no law that says you can't raise your hand up. Now if he was raising his hands up, picking up something and carrying heavy loads, that's work. But just maybe you wanted to scratch your head, or something. Raise your hand or something like that. So really no laws were breaking. So he kind of beat the system on this one. The Herodians here, y'all may know, verse 6, still in verse 6, that's the Jewish group. Aristocratic Jewish fellas here, they kind of joined in with the policies of Herod Antipas. They started supporting the Roman government. They did it for money. They are Jews, but they said, hey, we can get rich. We'll just go ahead and join in with the Romans here. They would be at odds with these Jewish leaders, but they joined forces, common enemy. And so that they joined forces here to get Jesus and everything. But these, these religious leaders missed the obvious thing that was happening here because their hearts were too caught up in power and prominence and tradition. They wanted all the power. They wanted all the attention on them, and they couldn't stand it that Jesus was getting it and everything. So, and by the way, we get ready to go on. What had Jesus done that was so bad that we've seen? What has he done? Nothing really, had. But
I think when they did, he asked them for the good to do evil or good. I think they knew the right answer. I don't think they were stymied. I think but it didn't suit their purpose. And how many times do we know to do well, to do the right thing?
yeah, they knew the right answer, but every time they answered, they got in trouble. And they knew that they'd keep their mouth shut. With it, you're right. Okay, the crowd's following. Look in verse 7. It says that Jesus withdrew. What does that mean, Jesus withdrew? He left. That's all it means. He didn't retreat or anything like that. At this point, Jesus has got a lot to do. He's got 3 years to do it with his disciples. He wanted to avoid further contact with these so-called religious leaders. He's not afraid of them. That's not why he left. But he needs to spend more time along with his disciples. He needs to prepare them what's to come. And so, he's going to take off. He's going to go and spend, he's going to withdraw, from where they were. And by the way, I learned coming up, I had some great men to follow, my mentors and things. But I learned so much by watching those men in times of stress and in times of strife and conflict, and watching how they handle themselves in those situations. And then following that situation, to sit down with them one-on-one and just let them tell me why you did it. And I'd ask them. I have one in Kentucky, East Auburn, Ken Nicholas. He would always sit down. Now, Jim, let me tell you why I did what I did, so you'll understand. I learned so much. The disciples are watching how Jesus is handling everything. Now he's going to take them off by themselves, and he's going to be teaching them. It's not cowardice here, in what he's doing. But he gets no rest. If you look down, verse 8, 7, verse 8 there, going in, look what happens. All of these people, they start coming, and they're coming from all over. You see, it said there was a great multitude, verse 7, then verse 8, it starts listing all the places that these people were coming from. There were a lot of Gentiles in these areas. So it's not just Jews, but all the Gentiles, they're going to be coming in here as well. And so look down in verse 9. When Jesus sees all these crowds coming, he knows they're coming. How's he going to protect himself from the crowd?
Get the boat and leave.
He's going to take a cruise. I hope they have a good buffet. He said, just get a boat ready. I love that. Have the boat ready. That is just good planning. And we've seen him do. He does this many times. He would go out there. And I've had people surrounding me when I go to places like that in this type of culture, and they want to touch you. I don't mind people touching me. I'm a touchy-feely guy and everything. I'm a hugger and a handshaker and all of that. But if you've got thousands of people and all of them want to touch you and grab you and stuff, and in that culture, the teacher to be touched by them, it means so much. And so, we have to surround people around us sometimes to protect us. You see, and here's the problem of these crowds that were coming. We like crowds. I want to see the church full. I want to see the crowds come. But the problem with these crowds, a lot of them that he was getting, was that they are not properly motivated. They wanted to see some of them, they were there just to see the next miracle, to see what he's doing next. Some of them there are simply there to get healed. Some of them there, like the Herodians, they're there just to catch him, or the scribes and Pharisees. They're not there to worship. They just wanted to get him and everything. And here's the thing. Jesus could be accused when you look at these verses 9 and 10 here, Jesus could be accused of getting an army together to overtake the kingdom, to go against the Romans. This would bring the soldiers. They would come marching in a hurry, and we'll see more of that a little bit later. But even though these crowds were coming upon him, they didn't have the right motivation for being there. Even though he could be accused of trying to get an army together to go against the Roman government, and that's what, scribes and Pharisees really wanted. He still loved these people. He still healed them, received them, delivered them. He's still looking after them because that's who he was. As we were told earlier. In verse 12, what did Jesus warn the crowd? In verse 12, what did he warn the crowd?
Not to tell who he was.
Yeah, don't tell who he was. You would think it would be good seeing this large crowd, but he was concerned there, and he didn't want all these numbers come. Where he couldn't teach disciples, or he couldn't continue with the ministry. You see, numbers are not always a true sign. Can be a lot of times, but their interest was not spiritual things where it need to be. Okay, disciples, or a group of disciples are set apart here. When you look this next section, picking up here, verse 13 and really going all the way down through 19. He sets these disciples apart. We've got to remember that when we're called, when Jesus calls us, he calls us for a purpose, not for status. That's what they were looking for, with status and everything. Jesus has been marked for death. No question. He's broken their rules. They don't like it. They marked him for death. They feel that he must go. They're not going to deal with him. They're not going to try to work with him. And so they're going to kill him. So how will his message, once they take him out, how's his message going to get around? Disciples. He selected these men who could teach them how to carry on the work. Mr. Dixon, gosh, he's a man gone to be with the Lord. Probably I was still, probably not all that long after I was married or so. But if there was a man I could go back and I could speak to, it would be Mr. Dixon. He was old when I was a little squirt. So I know he's going to be with the Lord now. He was my Sunday school teacher. And I'm probably 8, 9 years old, somewhere in that range. And I love Mr. Dixon. And he would teach us. And there was a couple of rowdy guys in our class, but he would just keep on going. Every now and then a spitball or something would hit him from one of them, but he would keep on going, and he would try to teach us. But I think back to Mr. Dixon. He had no idea. He had no idea that little shy, timid guy just sitting there in his class listening to what he said. He had no idea that one day he would be preaching and sharing the gospel all over the United States and all these other things. He had no idea. But he was there teaching and training. You see, that's how the gospel spread. You don't know. Some of you are teaching and things. You have grandkids. You have family members. You don't know. All of those little ones that you're with, that one of them might be the next Billy Graham that's coming up. And that's why every opportunity with the little ones, you always take time for them, because you don't know and everything that's there. You see, one of the ways we reach people, and I've learned this is why I've changed our entire work when I go overseas. We've about stopped overseas work now. But I realized that I could reach more people by multiplying myself, not trying to have these big crusades. There's a need for it. We need those, but we try to go now, we get groups, bring in leaders and pastors and train them. 2 Timothy 2:2. 2 Timothy 2:2 says, and these things that you have learned from me, this is Paul talking to Timothy, and among many witnesses, commit these to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. Do you know what one of Japan's biggest mistakes was in World War II? One of their biggest mistakes. They went
sleeping giant.
Yeah, they didn't awaken the sleeping giant. Well, one of them, when they hit Pearl Harbor, they were so eager trying to get big ships and kill it. all the fuel tanks that were there with all the oil, all the jet fuel, all the fuel for our ship, they were right there. Man, they flew over because I want to hit a ship. I want to hit a ship. If they had hit those tanks, we would have been in trouble years before we wouldn't have the fuel and stuff for our airplanes and our ships. Other thing, they didn't hit the dry docks. There's three. They didn't hit the dry docks because the ships that were damaged but didn't sink, they just pulled them right into the dry docks and repaired them. If they had bombed the dry docks, they would have had to tow these ships all the way to California from Hawaii. That would have taken months just to get the ships there to fix them. But here's the big one. This is where they really messed up. And this is what I think speaks to the church. When their pilots were really, really good, their ace pilots, if you have a really good pitcher in baseball, you want to put him on the mound every chance you get, don't you? Doesn't work that way in battle. They kept sending them up. They kept saying, we have ace pilots. When they had so many kills, we started bringing them home. We're not going to keep sending you up so you get blown away, because eventually, odds are, we would bring those ace pilots home. They were the ones that started training our new pilots. Because you can teach them everything about flying, how to control the plane, how to shoot the weapons on the plane. But those men knew secrets because they had been in combat. And they were training. So we were sending over well-trained men. Japan, they were sending up guys who had no experience and no training. That's why things really took a nosedive at the end of the war. You know, that's what we've got to teach our young ones. And some of us are old. I don't know about you, but I'm old, you know, and everything. And we've got to take the experience. We know Christ, and we've got to start sharing it with the disciples and everything, or we're going to be in trouble here. But anyway, when we're going on, we see that he starts picking all of these disciples here so that they will be the next leaders, and that he's going to train them for these 3 years so that then when he is gone, they can come in and they'll be able to do the work. Luke tells us in Luke 6:12 that Jesus stayed up all night before he picked his disciples. Wonder why Mark didn't tell us that. Wonder why Mark didn't share that information. Because he's again emphasizing the servanthood. Now, between verse 19 and verse 20, if you want to make a note of it, but in between verse 19, and we're going to stop because the time about to run out. We'll be stopping shortly, man. Between 19 and 20, you have the Sermon on the Mount. It's Matthew 5 through 7, chapters 5, 6, and 7. You know, Mark doesn't record that. Wonder why? That's one of the best sermons ever preached. Mark didn't put it in there. Again, Mark's emphasis is more on what he did as a servant, even more than just what he said here. These disciples, none of them are well off. James and John, kind of their father a little bit. But most of them, not well off, limited education, they're not well known. What do they have to offer? They're very teachable. They're very, very teachable. Jesus said, follow me, and they followed him. We'll pick up next time, right here, house divided and everything. And if I speak faster and y'all listen quicker, we'll get all the chapters in. But Matt, you will come and lead us in our prayer time.
Ain't got a clue, man.
I pushed the button. Hold on, Matt.
What button? What button?
Push the button.
Microphone's coming.
Oh, you're going up there, Tom.
Go ahead, Mac. No volume for you. My board froze.
The board froze. Microphone is not working. Nothing is working.
Put a blanket on.
Anyhow, first time, remember Dorothea, she went and had a heart count the other day and the brains and everything went well. She's doing good. Maybe Calvin, he's going to have some tests and stuff on this week, like,
See them all right tomorrow, next show.
MRI something. Number 2. You got me? You would remember Miss June, she's dealing with, some issues in her life. She's also, stepping down from being our secretary, so if anybody knows someone that needs a secretary or job, just let the person there for me to know. Remember Sydney, have they found anything with her?
Having it from tomorrow, but it's just a follow-up when, another specialist.
And I also remember Ron and Carol, Carol's brother passed away this week, so remember her. Tom recovering from cataract surgery.
Yeah.
Remember him. Ronnie Malphus went to the doctor today. He said he was going to cardiologist, but they couldn't find anything wrong with him, so you remember Ronnie Malphus. Freddie got surgery in June. And Pastor Osteen's having surgery tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon. 12:15, so remember Pastor Osteen and Miss Lou, she'd be a big nurse. And this coming Saturday, having trips, ladies celebration service is original Baptist Church. Visitation from 10 to 11, and the service at 11 o'clock. Also, Bonnie got a nephew, Christopher Getson. They found him in Charleston on a bench, so he was just, they found him dead, so they had to remember Bonnie, his mother's name is Wanda Honeycutt, so remember, yeah. Anybody else?
Patricia's thing said.
Yeah, Patricia's birthday party Saturday, so. I remember Pastor Section 8 as we seeking a pastor for Grateful Baptist Church. Upcoming deacon selection, remember it, as we are selecting a deacon to, for the new year. So the nominating committee, as they get together to hold leadership over here. So,
Also remember little Nadine, she,
yeah,
they
they
all
need,
got it set, she's doing okay.
yeah, they need how to have a race seat. She built her own, a race, yeah, she has a purchase. What else? And we need technical for the rain. Yes. Is that? Yeah, vacation Bible school is coming up. Anybody else? Sure, you read us a prayer.
Dear Lord in heaven, we thank you for this time and this study. Thank you for Brother Jim, able to bring calls. Remember, good lesson. We appreciate it. We're thankful. And we pray now for each one of these requests. Thank you, Lord, for help us with whatever need. Whatever the need was, I pray that Lord to help sickness or relieve much, or we have these different needs that Lord we pray for. And we pray now that the Lord is not here tonight, it's you to hear us, but let them not be. I'm down here, I pray for them. Back up next time, let's pray. And I pray, good Lord, that we all strive to do your will.
They all push on that way. You find all the good things you can. In your place. And this guy can put this nice ring. So for the night, you know. I pray that you respect my prayer.
Now, anybody with nominating committee, you just meet me on this table over here for just for a little bit.